this pivotal time in humanity's evolution, we are beginning to remember our organic technology. A technology, when used correctly, can create an experience that the majority of the people the world over want to live. It is time to use this technology consciously for our own benefit and healing, and no longer unconsciously for our own demise. We are multi-dimensional creators, creating both our own personal experience and our collective experience moment to moment. We invite you to join us as we reawaken this technology through experiment and experience our power to create and manifest.
Hello and welcome to this week's Collective Imagination Show. Once again, it's myself, Lisa Harrison, and Michael Monk. Welcome, Michael. Can't hear a word, darling, you're muted.
Thanks, Lisa, and glad to be here.
So last week we relaunched this show back with the two of us in its original format. And I wanted to tell you what my immediate experience was of the process we went through of connecting as a soul group.
Okay.
The two of us along with our listeners at the time. And it wasn't until, I felt that heat experience in my chest that stayed with me for some time. And then it wasn't until I actually went to bed that night, which was probably the first chance I'd had all day to really just be and relax. And as soon as I closed my eyes, I had this kaleidoscopic, very unusual vision. And it was a geometric pattern. If you can imagine looking through a kaleidoscope, when you're moving the kaleidoscope and you sort of see everything moving, it was like a chain of those. And they were independent of each other. And they were all moving and changing shape independently. And yet they made up this much larger geometric pattern. And it was amazing colors, and it felt really beautiful. And I just sort of stayed in it for as long as it lasted, which was, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 minutes.
Nice.
And I felt a sense of connectedness beyond. It was almost like it was a portal in a way. Like through it, I was connected to so much more.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Awesome.
That's all I got.
I mean, there's a lot you can do with it from there. Each one of those fractals that you see is a universe. If you can learn to project your consciousness through them, they are literal gateways. So you're changing your perception at that point from being a physical being in a physical universe to being consciousness exploring patterns, which really is what all of this is anyhow. The physical world we see around us is a product of a lot of development that we've done in order to be able to interpret energy this way. It's quite a miracle.
I just realized I hadn't stopped the music. So there was music playing over the top of us for all of that.
Okay.
And I don't think they're hearing you very well.
Really? Are we getting comments from the chat?
Yeah, Jeff just mentioned, can't hear Monk.
Oh, wow.
Jeff, honestly, I did such a thorough test before we went live this morning, not with Michael, admittedly, and everything worked beautifully. And since I got on with Michael, I can barely hear him myself. So we really don't know what that's about.
Yeah, everything on my settings is showing that it's working. I mean, I go into settings and the bar goes all the way up. Computers just irritate me. Yeah, well, I mean, I talk right now, it's showing full volume, so that makes no sense.
Okay, they can hear you softly. You might have to try swallowing that microphone a little bit.
I, I don't know if this is any better. I mean, my screen is showing maximum input from the microphone.
Oh, look, no doubt it's at my end. That's just the way it is. But,
Okay.
okay, you are a little better with the microphone closer.
Okay. All right.
So what were you saying about universes and portals and things?
Well, what you were perceiving, each one of those fractals, each one of those little geometries that make up the whole, each one of those is a gateway. Each singular one is a universal expression. So you can learn to project in and through it. So you were changing your perception from a physical based being in a physical world to being pure consciousness and navigating different geometrical patterns, which is what realities are made from. So with practice, when you go into that perception, you'll be able to actually project to other dimensions, other worlds.
Okay, I've got a question for you. And I'll tell you after where this is coming from. But in your experience of projecting yourself out, of creating planets and universes and what have you, is there anything out there that we would call an inorganic matrix?
Yeah, the internet.
Apart from that,
I mean, I suppose you could say that. I mean, everything is organic in a way. I mean, everything stems from consciousness and from universal energy. Um,
all right, we'll use this as a analogy. A natural human being, in the sense of all flesh and bone, compared to what would be the end result of the transhumanist agenda, you know, the sort of organic robot, with or without consciousness. If you use those as an analogy between organic and inorganic, even though both have consciousness as such,
mhm.
could you then compare that and say that there is an inorganic reality?
Well, I mean, any possibility and any probability exists. So just the fact that we've made the internet automatically spawns infinite parallels from that. I've had out of body experiences inside of the internet. So yes, it is possible to experience a complete digital makeup or version of reality. Um,
So those computer screens in the matrix are something you can be in,
sure.
experience being in. Okay, that's trippy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's possible to experience reality anyway. I mean, a digital reality versus an analog reality, it's just whether or not there's smooth waveform energy feeding it. Our idea of what's real and what's not is really a very it's a dualistic type of understanding. Like there's no such thing as not real. Every single thing imaginable is real. It's just how real is it? How solid is it? So every single thing exists. I mean, the moment you think of something, if it didn't exist before, then it exists the moment that you think of it. It just depends on the magnetism that goes into the creation. So, who thought of it? How many thought of it? How much group energy was put towards it? How much magnetism did the group have that made the thought as to how solid and how real it will be? Um,
Okay. All right, now I'll tell you where the question's coming from.
okay.
And Jeff, it wasn't actually Lily, but now that you mention her, yeah, it could have been. Jeff's in the chat room. I don't know how familiar you are with John Lamb Lash and his work, but I have an interview coming up with him this week, and I'm reading up on a lot of the material that he's put out, and I haven't looked at his stuff for a long time, for a few years, and I may have my basic understanding slightly skewed. I'm not sure. I'll find that out when I talk to him. But it's, from what I can gather, it correlates with some of the stuff that I've received from other people that I've interviewed and other information I've seen out there online. And Jeff, you're probably aware of her too. Yellow Rose for Texas is a YouTube channel with a woman who's put a lot of information out about us being in, basically being brought into a reality or an energy frequency range. The planet and humanity was kind of dragged into the realm that we shouldn't be in. It's not our organic place to be. And this is, to use John's terminology, this is like the realm of the archons, and this planet got pulled into it. And it's not our natural place, and which is why so many people feel like they don't belong here. That's her sort of description of it. With John's, it's more of, I kind of think of the way he describes the archons as like almost like a parasitic twin that was an accident that should never have happened. You know, that as Sophia was going through this process of creating this reality, this cosmos, he kind of puts it in terms of, she was so invested and so passionate and so in love with her creation that she got drawn into it, and is embodying this, is the embodiment of this planet, or the planet is the embodiment of her consciousness. And that as a side effect, this whole accident happened, which are called the archons, and that they were given the ability to kind of create a world for themselves, a reality for themselves, to keep them busy, because they didn't belong in this one. They've got their own, and yet they have not honored those boundaries. And again, I can see a similarity between him and what Yellow Rose is saying. They're saying that they also pulled us into their reality, and that Sophia is now, as of March this year specifically, kind of on her correction course. And that also lines up with people like Alfred Weber on his positive timeline, Lily Earth, who Jeff referenced earlier, that we're now on humanity's plan instead of the light creation plan. Everyone's got their own terminology, but it's like they're saying really, really similar things. So in order to give anything Yellow Rose for Texas says credence, although, I mean, what she puts out there is mind-boggling, and I don't even claim to understand half of it. The very concept of an inorganic reality has to be a viable option to start with. That on one level, free will can be manipulated, perhaps. Maybe on a grander scale, bigger picture, all of that, it never is. And there's agreements and contracts that go way back that allow you to forget that you agreed to being manipulated. But the very premise of either what we would call an inorganic or an artificial or an accidental creation has to be there for any of these theories to have weight, in my opinion, from what I'm understanding of them all. I mean, Yellow Rose is talking about spaceships, and all the planets are actually spaceships, essentially, with a mast, and they're moving on tracks. And she's got some pretty impressive NASA footage to back up her theory. And it's a completely out of the box view of reality to anything I'd seen before. But as someone who has experienced out of the body so many different realities. I just wanted to see how you see where all of that could possibly fit in. And I know I just hit you with a whole heap of information, and I'm really sorry. But this is where I spend most of my time in this head. So, yeah, what have you got?
Well, for one, as for Earth being in an improper range of vibration, I mean, what the physical reality is the five senses. That's what Earth is, and we are Earth. I don't mean like a part of Earth. I mean it all comes out of us from our center. So you're creating the world around you. I'm creating the world around me, according to a preset pattern, which is contained within the five senses of the physical body. So I mean, you got the rainbow spectrum. That's the range of sight. That's the range that we see in. If a vibration's above or below that, then we don't perceive that as being form. We've got the audible range of hearing, 20 to 20,000 hertz. Above and below that, if we receive vibrations, we don't consider that to be sound. Touch has a range. Taste and smell, they all have a range. So we have been in the same frequencies. Like having eyeballs and ears and skin automatically places you in a preset range, a predetermined range of vibration that your consciousness is going to legitimize. Um, so that's where I'm at. I mean, reality comes from the inside out. Every single thing that we see external to us is a projection from within our center. So I'm not trying to invalidate what these people are saying, because any paradigm is valid. Once consciousness becomes magnetic or electromagnetic, any single paradigm that you hold to be the truth becomes the absolute truth, and you get experiential data to back it up. We The thoughts that we have when we think, when we begin to do mental constructs, even though most people aren't able to feel them magnetically or energetically, these are taking place in vibrational ranges that are outside of the physical spectrum. So the more time, the more thought, the more energy that's paid them attention, the more solid, the more valid, the more real they become. When I contract in past the body, like when I go into vibrate into the electromagnetic range and start to become more solid than the physical universe. In other words, take on more energy than what's being projected here. I swear, any single thing that I hold to be the truth becomes the anchor point, and it starts to become experiential. So I'm really encouraging people to stop seeking the official story, because there's no story that we're ever going to be told that's going to lead us to where we want to go. Where we want to go is to become fifth dimensional beings in this density of energy. And to do that, we've got to cling to fifth dimensional truths. And that is that you did not come from a past, you came from right now. You came from the eternal moment that's deep within all of our cores. So we have to hold to that. We have, if you start to deviate from that, then you automatically start transposing your consciousness to a 4D and 3D paradigm, which really isn't going to lead anywhere except to maybe the possible enjoyment of a story, which is what I call facts. I mean, anything that we call history or future, anything like that, like those are stories to me from my point of view. Um, if they're a good one, well, yeah, sure. Let's do it. Let's anchor that in, and let's make it real. You know, remembering, okay, the only place of power that we have to change things is in the now moment. And what I mean by that, whenever we think in words, it vibrates our column from the voice box upwards, and it takes our consciousness to the left and to the right. So spatially speaking, when you learn how to project, if you want to go to the future, you project to the left. If you want to go to the past, you project to the right. And you will end up in the future or the past, which was spawned from this current now moment, from this current thought that we're having. So the way you get into a place of power where the external reality begins to conform to your thoughts, to your feelings, to your paradigm that you hold is by not thinking, by feeling deeply within yourself to where you begin to contract and go into the source. um, Once that's obtained, that's the place of power where what you start to feel, the emotions, the energy that you vibrate, begin to have a tangible effect on your immediate reality. So these things are interesting, but they're endless head loops, endless, and it's not going to lead anywhere. It's not going to lead to any real place of development for anybody, only by each person understanding their own consciousness, gaining the flexibility and the mobility, being, first of all, being able to sense the energy in their own body at all times, then expanding the consciousness outward to expand the idea of self to include the body and everything outside of the body. That is the development. That's where we got to go. There's been so many stories delivered, um, and they're interesting. I'm not going to say that they aren't, but to me, it's just spinning our wheels. Like, it's not leading us to any real place of development. Each individual person understanding their essence, finding the mobility in their consciousness, becoming electromagnetic, and learning to shape and create their own self. To me, that's the only thing that really should be focused on in this time. I mean, it's time for us to really be empowered, and by perceiving something external from us that has a grip or a control on us, we're like a dog chasing its own tail, because reality comes from the inside out. So it, by us identifying an enemy and then struggling against it, we are just leading ourselves further away and out from our center, which is where the power point is, where you actually have the ability to change things. So, I'm definitely not invalidating these people's experiences or anything. I'm just saying it's not where we want to go or where we want to be focused if you do indeed want to truly be empowered.
Okay, I get you. There is still the savior model in a lot of these philosophies as well.
Hmm.
Which I think we're in a process of purging from the collective
Hmm.
right now, actually, whether it's ETs or ascended masters or saviors or in some form. It just feels like that right now, that
Hmm.
people are really getting the, it's up to me, it's up to us, it's up to the collective, it's up to the individual. So that seems to be the current wave of release from the collective.
Hmm. Yep.
But you touched on creating your own reality, and most of the information and material that's out there on that subject revolves around the law of attraction,
Hmm.
which also includes the, don't think about, don't give energy to things you don't want, because you're just feeding it. But when you're looking at creating your own reality from an energetic, or from an energy master perspective, I imagine you can go a hell of a lot deeper. And we're not talking about, the sort of mainstream, you can have a Lamborghini or that perfect job. We're talking about truly creating every aspect of our own reality.
Hmm.
Are there any, I know you've had a lot of students over the last few years.
Hmm.
Is there anyone who stands out as being, the most, what's the word? Most improved, you could say, if they were giving out awards at school, for taking wherever they were at in their life when they joined your school, and where they were 6 months later, purely through mastering energy. You haven't got to give names, but does anyone stand out in terms of the way they changed their immediate reality?
Yeah, quite a few. One that stands out in particular, a female student. One of my first students, her son joined the course first and was highly successful at it. Like just excelled in every one of the lessons. And so the mother was naturally enthused because she talks to her son about spirituality. When she came in, she was having a very hard time and wasn't having success with the lessons like her son was. Uh, but I explained to her, that some people learn faster, some people learn slower, to just stick with it and just keep doing it. It takes work and effort. Like she was in it for like 3 or 4 months. She did stick with it and she did get the results. And a year later, she's now a teacher within the course. She can demonstrate various forms of telekinetics. She can move the wind. She can heal people. She can travel out of her body. Do all of these amazing things. And she really learned to stand her ground and to hold her own as a creator. Her life experiences were previously like that of being under male domination and stuff like that in her relationships. So she had a lot of wounding that got healed, and she started realizing how powerful she is and how much energy comes out of her own self and her own ability to change things, make things better, to not take people's crap, to not let people walk over her, and at the same time maintain yourself as a loving, kind, caring being. So that happens quite a bit in the course, with women finding out how powerful they are to actually change things and make a solid difference. But yeah, there's quite a few. I mean, it's really hard to pick out individual stuff because we've got hundreds of students at any given time, and it's profound for each and every one of them. It's a complete rewiring of how you view reality, and it's permanent. Once it's obtained.
I just wanted to ask those in the chat room if you were listening to the show last week or have since, if you had an experience, if you could share it in the chat room now, that you would associate with the meditation that we did, the joining together. I know there were a couple in the Facebook group that were shared, but I didn't want to bring up my Facebook right now to go to it in case sometimes. But if you could share it in the chat room, that'd be great. I know that there was a few people who had dreams that night,
Mm-hmm.
and really felt the connection.
Mm-hmm.
One woman talked about listening to a tape that her son had made her years before when his child was born, and it was just a mixtape that he'd made for his mum, and she'd been listening to it for years, and she listened to it that day later that day, and she felt exactly, for the very first time after listening to this tape for years, she felt exactly where her son was at emotionally when he made that tape for her, in terms of he'd just become a new dad and all the love and the expansion he was going through as a result of that. She felt him completely through listening to these songs.
Wow.
She credited that directly to the meditation we did. Linda's saying, yes, I seem to pick up a lot of visions of other people's lives. I didn't recognize any of them. Huh, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Any scenes of Morocco? Yeah, I'd have to think about that. See, I suppose if somebody's in a state of okay, let's say you've done one of these soul group connection type of things, and if one person in that group is then in a place of sadness, are we going to pick up on that? Or if they're completely overjoyed, are we going to pick up on that and just find ourselves feeling particular emotions for no apparent reason?
Well, yeah, I mean, It's a group energy and everything's combined, so it just depends on how receptive and how perceptive you are. Typically, though, what would be felt by most people is the majority of the energy, like the majority of what the magnetics were in the overlap. So if a minority was somebody feeling sad, then you would have to be very sensitive in order to key in on that. So the more sensitive you are, the more you would be able to, key in on all of that. Uh, Ultimately, though, I want to encourage people to realize that we've been interpreting energy and judging it all along. That
Yeah.
energy is really neutral. It's a vibration. It's a wave. So obviously it's creative. Like I don't really believe in negative energy from where I'm at. All energy is positive. All energy is creative. Whenever you sound a vibration, whenever your heart beats, whenever you breathe, whenever you speak, whenever you think, it generates a frequency that goes outward, and that's neutral. That's just a wave. It's a pulse of energy. Nothing more and nothing less. So once you learn to harmonize with the full range that we've been exposed to all the time, and I do mean harmonize, then the energies that we used to call sadness, anger, aggression, fear, every single thing negative is not that anymore. It's just another beautiful expression of all that is. It's our interpretation, our own judgment of these emotions that even gives us the idea of a negative emotion. The energy that we call aggression is just powerful energy. Nothing more, nothing less. It's when consciousness experiences it and cannot harmonize with it that aggression happens, because the consciousness gets confused, irritated. It's more energy than can currently be harmonized within that mindset, and so we get angry or hostile or aggressive. Or same thing with fear. Fear is an exposure to a large amount of energy. Nothing more, nothing less. But when we're out of harmony with it, then it vibrates us in a non-harmonic way, and then we interpret that as a negative emotion. Um, there's many layers, like an onion, to how all of this works. Um, it's like if you imagine a sphere with an absolute core and that source, and it's emanating infinite energy outwards. As you expand outwards in the sphere, there's different densities of the energy. So the further out from source it gets, the lighter it gets, or the more it dissipates, the more expanded it becomes. On each one of these layers is also a new mental interpretation of that energy itself. So, and these actually align with the chakra column. So at the root, at the very root perception, when you slip completely down, when you go all the way in, there's nothing but vibration and sensation. So we experience the sum totality of all universal energies, but not biochemically as emotions, not as sight, and not as sound. We experience it purely vibrationally and sensationally. And when you achieve that level, you see and clearly that it's all miraculous, that there's no such thing as a vibration that isn't love. It's all incredible to feel every single range. And I mean, like, even stuff that from the ego level we would say is very negative is just amazing to feel at that level. And you could equate that to the root area of the body. On the very next harmonic outward, we begin to have emotional interpretation of the energy. And that takes place like at the stomach level, all the way up to the throat. That's where we have our various emotional sensations, or like from the root all the way up to where the throat begins. This is where energy starts to be expressed biochemically, and through the glands and the endocrine system. And this is where we begin to have judgments about the energy. We say, oh, that's positive, that's negative, that's love, that's fear, that's bliss, that's sadness, so on and so forth. This is when the labeling system began to be applied. um, On the next harmonic out, we have sound, which begins at the throat area, and this is where we begin to have a universal construct. Um, the universal form that we know is based on interpreting universal energies through sight and sound. The next level up from that is where the head begins, and that's where we begin to interpret these energies as sight. But before we had sight, before we have sound, before we have emotion, we just have pure source. And in that range of perception, everything is amazing to feel. It's just because we haven't harmonized the bodies yet with the prime source that we're even capable of feeling something that we would interpret to be negative.
That was quite a mouthful. Wow. And really clear and concise too. Thank you.
Thanks.
Anything that's described in a way that gives me a good visual is very, very helpful.
Hmm.
But harmonizing is easier said than done. I mean, easier
Absolutely.
done. Yeah, easier said than done.
Hmm.
Now, I know that I shared very briefly with you what happened to me last Christmas Day. But I wanted to go into more what happened post Christmas Day, because I didn't feel this on the day. In fact, it took a couple of days to kick in, but the response in terms of me being able to feel it and monitor it, but the response from others was immediate. I seemed to be in a state of such unconditional love. I was so centered in my heart that it was visible to those around me. And I would literally go out in public and people would stop and stare, just stop dead in their tracks. I don't even know how to explain the sort of things I was feeling. And I'm not even sure whether it dissipated over the period of the next 3 months or whether it stopped dead when I moved into this town in Morocco, in Alstom. I'm not sure, because I know that right up to that point, things were still happening on a daily basis. For those who were listening to the shows back then in early January, may remember my highly embarrassing experience. I couldn't even go on the show that night because it seemed like every night I was getting these blasts of energy. I was receiving information or remembering something, whatever it was. And there was one night in particular where, and we're supposed to do a show that night, it was like having orgasms, but they were from the heart and they were just in waves coming out just constantly. And I was out on the balcony of this place in Morocco, and I've got Brian and Bob and like 3 other guys there, and I'm like, oh, hey, I'm having this moment. And it went on for hours. And I couldn't do the show that night. I was just completely incapable. But the following night, I did get on the show because they outed me and said I had to come on and share. And I tried to share the experience. And I was able to, I just put the call out, and we had quite a few people listening. There was a couple of hundred people listening. And I said, whoever wants to, feel free to connect with me right now. And I felt them in that moment, each and every one of them. And sent this blast from my heart. And the feedback from them was instant. You know, they were in chat rooms and Facebook and Skype and everything, and telling me what they felt. And it was all within a very narrow range. So I know that they weren't talking to each other. They were all talking about this sensation up the spine and their heart just expanding. And it was an amazing place to be. Amazing. To be in that state of just unconditional love for everything and everyone. You know, walking down the street or walking through the airport, you know, one of the energetically most horrible places to be, and just pumping unconditional love for everybody and like absolutely feeling it. Seeing the beauty in everything. And I haven't been there. I haven't been in that place for more than a moment at a time since like the beginning of March, probably. And having had a taste of that, it's almost like, you know, a cosmic cruel joke. But to have been there for pretty much 3 months solid, and to have been receiving really, really powerful and insightful information. Well, like I say, receiving or remembering, who knows? That not only assisted me, but was for others in my immediate environment. And I don't really know what it was all about. I don't know what Christmas Day was really all about yet, still. But I want to get back there. And I almost feel blocked in getting back there. It's really kind of tricky terrain. And you know, I can evoke it at times, but it's not the same. And I kind of feel like you got a taste of something too when you went through your experience in June. And I know you're not exactly where you were then either.
Right.
And that even though you were experiencing a lot of the negatives within the various collectives, there was also a state of love and bliss that you were in as well, right?
Oh, yeah.
I take it that that's also dissipated to some extent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they've both backed off about 50%. I mean, maybe closer to 70. It just depends on the day.
Can you speak up?
They've backed off significantly. I'm probably anywhere between 30 and 50% connected as I was back then. As to the whys and I mean, I really don't know at this point. I do feel things like I don't like see the future. When I travel out of my body, I do, but I can feel it, and I feel another wave coming shortly after the new year, and that this one will be even more powerful. And it's just, I feel we're being tested from the greater part of ourself that we call source or God or soul or higher self, whatever you want to call it, is just testing the waters. I mean, that's what these past activations have been, and seeing how from this level how we react to having an exposure to that level of energy. Can I ask, did you experience any sort of a crash afterwards, or did it just lightly stem off and then you were fine?
Oh, that's a hard question to answer because there was so much going on that there's no real way of knowing what to attribute to what. I crashed, yeah, but I was also stuck in a foreign country that I didn't want to be in. I was away from my kids. I had no idea when I was going to see them again. There were many things that were going on in my immediate and environment as well as back home. There was lots of reasons to crash.
Yeah.
So I couldn't say definitively I crashed as I came down from that. It's like the experiences, like I said, on Christmas Day, I didn't feel that necessarily. I mean, I have actually very little, if any, memory of Christmas Day itself at all. Memory of what I did, what I said, where I went, or what I felt.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't recall feeling that state of bliss and love immediately after either, but it seemed to be there based on other people's response to me.
Mm-hmm.
It probably took a week for me to get into that and really feel it. And it wasn't until I was leaving the States around the 4th of January that, as I said, I had that experience of walking through the airport. And it was pretty funny because I was in a lift by myself. And the lift went down a floor. And the doors didn't open for 3 or 4 seconds. But in that 3 or 4 seconds, I could hear voices on the other side of the door, male voices. And when the doors opened, there was 4 adult men and 3 or 4 boys of 8 to 12, I guess, standing there waiting to get in the lift. And the doors open and these 4 guys just go, whoa. It was the funniest thing I've ever seen. And I just burst out laughing. And even the kids just went, who's that? All right, and nothing to do with what I was wearing or what I look like. I know that.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I was really feeling it that day. I was really pumping that day. But no, I can't say I had a crash that I could say definitively was as a result of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Linda, they felt the energy. Yeah, it was pouring out of me. Did you?
I mean, did I? I'm sorry. Did
have
I
a
feel?
crash?
Oh, not really so much of a, well, yeah, I mean, I went through like a month of my biochemistry having to be rearranged where I felt a little bit depressed, and I'm actually just fully pulling out of that over the past month. I just got really detached afterwards. Like, I honestly just got sick of all of it. Like, I got sick of evolution, got sick of energy, got sick of talking about it, and like, and I'm still a bit there. I mean, energy's still my passion and everything, but I'm really in a massive state of allowance right now. I mean, that's my mental mindset. I just I've completely let go of the tight grip on things that I used to have, and especially during that time period. I like, had an iron grip on everything, and everything seemed detrimental. That I had to control this, have to change that, in order to have a workable paradigm for myself and for everybody else. But where I'm at now, it's I mean, I don't even know how to express it. I mean, there's no concerns, there's no worries. Everything's fine. From a greater level, all of this is watched over, all of this is protected, and it doesn't mean that we don't have our work to do, or that our journey is not going to continue. But I just no longer have this mindset of urgency, or of a need to overtly change things. I guess you could just say I'm sort of taking a backseat, letting things unfold. And that's the message I've been getting for this time period that we're in now, is this is one of integration. What happened to us happened to everybody in various degrees. We are a collective. There's not one single thing that we do, not one event that we experience that is not connected to every single other thing that every other person is experiencing. So no matter what level you experienced it at, it was a period of growth for everybody. So this period that we're in now is one, I feel, of self-reflection, integration, learning to harmonize the upgrade that we got, and prepare ourselves for when the next one happens. And the best way that we can prepare, or the way that we need to prepare, is firmly grounding ourselves into the fifth dimensional truths, basic truths, the only truths. I mean, these are the only truths that we come from right now, that past and future springs from our being, that the universe around us is a product of our own self, that we are forming our reality, every single bit of it, that our point of power is in the now moment, and that we create our reality. If we slip from that, then we're done for, just done for. Which is why, our species of consciousness has not been exposed to that level of energy yet.
So
We
in a
are
really
not
practical way,
ready.
though, how do you deal with stuff that comes into your reality that is not your preference?
Well, you don't let it in. You don't let it into your center. So, um, energy you can experience different energies. It doesn't mean that you have to let it in. So, if your presence is deep within your core and you can feel your projections coming out of you, um, you know what is of yours and what's of something else, or a mismanifestation. When something is contrary to what you want to create, the last thing you want to do is let it into your core, because then your place of power gets invaded by a paradigm that you don't wish to experience. So you reflect or you project, you don't absorb that. You just say, okay, well, that's not a part of what I'm projecting, so I'm not going to validate it. I'm not going to give it any extra energy or any extra attention, because it's not a part of what I'm doing. But you use it as indicators to see where you're at. Uh, it's got to be remembered how dense the energy is here. So it takes time, it takes patience and perseverance, which is why so many people fall out of fifth dimensional paradigm once it's obtained. For these brief moments, it's so easy for us to fall out because we have a look at the world around us again, and then all of a sudden it seems like it's not working, and so we start to fall back into the old survival rhythms. Um, we just need to stay focused on what we are creating, and don't let the things into our center that aren't a part of what we're actually wanting to make or wanting to manifest.
Sorry, I had to turn my camera off so I could run off and get my computer charger. Okay, because I still get messages from people who are sort of active in the straw man, what we call the straw man movement or the sovereign movement. And they say things like, they believe that they're doing the right thing energetically. They believe they're in their heart. They believe that they create their own reality, and they believe that they've embodied thought forms in terms of, I am sovereign, I am my own creator, and this is the world that I want. And then someone comes knocking on the door who wants to, arrest them or pull them over in their car and harass them or take them to court or whatever. And in those moments, they're like, no, hang on, this is not how I am in here. This is not what I'm projecting. But in that moment, it's the reality that's confronting them.
Hmm.
And I guess what I'm looking for is some way of handling those moments where it's right there and it's right in front of you and it's confronting you, even when you feel like you've done the work. And I guess that you're also dealing with an energy snowball that's been built up over the years. It's not just going to disappear because now
Hmm.
in this moment you're in your heart. You're going to have to deal with that kind of winding down.
Right. Well, that's in tandem with what I was saying before about real or not real, that we as humans tend to think digitally. We tend to think on, off, real, not real. I create my reality, I don't. No single one of us absolutely creates our reality. That's not how it works. Not at all. It goes in degrees, and those degrees are dependent upon how close to source you are, which is dependent on how much energy you have or mastered, how much you can harness, how much of the source you're harmonic with, how much of the now moment you actually embody. Determines how big of an impact you have on reality. And in my deepest states that I've gone to, I haven't transcended the earth pattern. Like I haven't well, I leave my body. I can leave my body and go to other worlds, sure. But I haven't like had this world completely rearrange itself while on my feet, focused physically in the body. But I have gotten it to the point where every single feeling, everything that I'm feeling in the moment gets manifested through the nature, through what's being said on the TV, through whatever songs come on, to animals appearing, so on and so forth. But even in those moments where I'm dialed in, connected, experiencing an energy that would floor most people. In other words, most people would not be able to stay in their bodies experiencing that level of energy. I was maybe creating reality about 20, 25%. So it's something we really have to work towards and keep striving towards, and to understand that reality creation without the energy mastery is hopeless. It's doomed failure from the start, because you've only got your level of magnetism for one. The level of soul mass that you have determines how big of a dent you make on the collective consciousness with your own independent thoughts and desires. So if a person is disconnected, like not feeling, okay, how can I? The abilities that I demonstrate in my course, that the other teachers and people from other disciplines that we demonstrate, where we change the weather, where we move the wind, those are that's a basic level of connection that without that level, your thoughts, your beliefs are not really going to create much reality, except to help you stay in a positive mental framework in order to remove your own blockades towards actually physically building that. But a person's thoughts do not impact and change the collective unless the collective is felt as a part of the self. Um, to feel the collective as a part of yourself, you first have to be able to feel your surrounding environment as a physical extension of your body. And then you begin to feel the collective consciousness when your energy begins to expand through time. And that's when you encompass it. And when you do, it's flooring. I mean, it's powerful. It's a lot to hold. To help people understand, if you sit on your leg the wrong way and you cut off all your blood flow, if you stand up and try to walk, you can't. You can't move your leg. You can't walk,
Mm.
even though you know damn well how to walk. You know how to fire those muscles. It doesn't matter. You can't feel your leg. Therefore, you can't change it. You can't control it. You can't do a damn thing to it. If you go to the dentist and your mouth gets numbed up for dental work, you can't talk. You can't say a damn word accurately. You can't even move your mouth because you can't feel it. So unless you feel something as being a part of the self, it is completely immune to your mental will. Your mental willpower doesn't touch it, doesn't even phase it, not even possible. So it's not even possible for a person to impact collective consciousness and be a sovereign creator of their reality unless they feel the entire reality as being a product of their own being. So it's great that people are developing mentally in that way, that they're opening up to these concepts of beliefs creating reality. I would say the metaphysical father of all of that was Seth, channeled by Jane Roberts in the 60s, who explain the mechanics of all of this. However, Seth in the books, after explaining it, gave exercises to do in order to actually obtain the energy necessary for this to have any impact whatsoever. Um, Unfortunately, Seth was not a physical being. He was far departed from the physical body. So his techniques in order to tap the energy were not that good. Otherwise, we would have, tons of telekinetic metaphysical energy masters, because that material has, been around for a long time. Um, so it's beliefs plus energy. You can't just have the beliefs. That's
I feel
it's
like I've
like
been
throwing an
spoiled.
invisible stone. What's that?
I kind of feel like I've been spoiled when it comes to that, because whenever I've tapped into the collective, or
Mhm.
many of my other experiences, they've just happened spontaneously. I don't feel like I had to work for them or at them or anything. They've come to me, so to speak. So I feel a bit
Mhm.
spoiled. And maybe that's what Christmas Day was all about, giving me a glimpse of where we can be when you actually do work for it.
Mhm.
Dangled it like a carrot. No, here you go. No. Here you go. Because Linda in the chat room was saying that she was there too. She was there for 12 years in that state, and then it went away. And wow, I can't imagine being there for 12 years and having it go away. And that it's depressing when it does. And yeah, when you mentioned the crash, and Linda mentioning depression, yeah, there have been times where I've been brought to tears, just longing to be back in that state, and asking for it, for sure, and yet feeling blocked when it comes to actually actively doing anything to work for it. Strange combination.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, where I'm at now after all the work I've done, which is a lot, well, we all have these periods, these spontaneous periods, even those of us that are doing daily work and development, to where we get ramped up to greater and greater levels for whatever reason, a part of our self source or God, or testing out the waters through us. um, and we can be greatly elevated by that, but unless you consciously tap that your own self on purpose, then you don't have the gateway, you don't have a guaranteed gateway of going into that level of consciousness anytime you wish. So
No.
the level of energy I was exposed to during that period was basically given to me for whatever reason. I'm not, interested right now in understanding the reasons behind it. Um, I just know that it happened, and that I was able to hold that, that level of power for a period of time. However, it didn't come from me, or at least the me, which quite frankly is the only me that I'm concerned with while I'm here on planet Earth. It's nice that I have this other me in a completely different state, but I obviously can't depend on that. So, um, what I'm interested in is the things that we can do to consciously and consistently tap into greater levels of energy, greater levels of reality creational capabilities.
At will.
I do know that, yeah, at will, and that's by understanding how to tap it. By gaining your own mental pathway. So this is pretty much why ascension can't be given to a person. It can't just be handed down, because then it's not their ascension. It's another being's ascension, and your own personal ascension would be entirely dependent upon the grace of another being maintaining this link with you in order for you to be quote unquote ascended. However, if the individual learns through their own work, their own effort, their own merits, how to tap that level of energy, then it's theirs and it can never be taken, because that own person, their own mental complex, has the mastery of that situation. So I don't think there's very many people on the planet that are actively engaged in spirituality and metaphysics, that desire anything less than being a sovereign being. Um, that
It's
being the
interesting that you
case,
said,
well,
sorry, it's interesting that you said that you feel like it was given to you. Because that's how it felt to me too. And it felt like my connection to what I call Big Lisa was just a constant, and it was really, really strong.
Yeah.
And that there was no separation for that period of time between little Lisa and big Lisa.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what I miss as much as anything else.
Yeah, I mean, I miss it too. I'm in this process right now of just integrating everything that I've experienced, understanding it mentally, formulating a pathway back to that level of energy, that level of power, that level of magnetism, that level of influence, um, consciously, being able to tap into that greater level because I want to. And I mean, this me, the Michael Monk here in the physical body.
The guy in the red
Um,
t-shirt.
exactly.
Well, look, maybe it's time to start asking the audience, those in the chat room, about our collective imagineering for today. Did you have anything in mind?
No, I figured I would let the people listening to the show decide all of that. In terms of reality creation, it's really not my thing. Like, I believe in it. I know it's real, and I know it's very important. Just um, as a soul, it's not my primary interest. My primary interest is tapping greater and greater levels of energy, and to experience it. I love surges of energy. I love holding vast amounts of it, and I love teaching it. As souls, we always specialize in certain areas, and usually that's where our interest is. So I'm I'm good at collective manifestations. I'm good at tapping like that and changing things. It's just where the mindset I'm in right now is that it's all every single thing is just as good as every single other thing. Like I'm just not at this place where I just don't feel like dictating. So if anybody if anybody else has it, then yeah, and it sounds good, I'll support it. We'll do some serious booming, and we'll get stuff rolling. But I sort of wanted to leave all of the manifestations to what you guys want to do, and if it's something that's not a negative, that doesn't involve destroying or knocking people down, then I'll back it up 100% with my energy.
Well, does anybody in the chat room know of any parts of the world that are experiencing bad drought right now, or or in desperate need of some loving peace? A single boom of a transparency wave. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we could continue to ride that one, couldn't we, Jeff? That's not a bad one, actually. Transparency. Okay, we've got somebody in the chat room who's not very friendly towards you, Michael, so I'm going to tell that person right now to shift their energy, please. Someone else in the chat room, Jim's also saying that 20 years ago he was in that love vibration for 4 or 5 years and it all went away. And he just wishes he could get it back too. Well, maybe we could focus on that. Can we do something around that?
Sure.
That assists everyone into getting back into that unconditional heart space? Yeah. Because
whatever you guys want to do, I'm open.
Yeah, we've got 2 in the chat room and me for sure, and potentially you. So sounds great. So, okay. Well, I'm going to put a song on just so that everyone can go to the bathroom and give me a moment to get some music in for the meditation. So I'm going to play a song for now. That's what I was wanting, Lisa. I had no idea the show would hit on this key. Oh, good. We're here to serve, Linda. Do what we can. I'll put a song on and then we'll come back. Welcome back. That seemed appropriate. I'm so in love with you. And so I have managed to find something. I don't know what it is, but it's called meditation music. So we shall see. And I just wanted to read out before we went into this Linda's comment here. I suspect I lost it due to judgment. And I just need to turn monitoring off because I'm getting echo. I was a very allowing person, not into judgment. Then I met up and married a man who was super critical and judgmental. Says something about who we spend our time with. I've only had a few brief experiences of that over the last few years. It seems cruel to have that much love and to lose it. I know. I agree completely. Okay. So I guess we go through the same sort of process we did last week. We connect with one another, and then you lead the way. I can't hear you. Why can't I hear you?
Oh, I was muted. Sorry. Okay. Yeah, reality comes from the inside out. You are the world that you see. It's spherical, so it's like we're in a standing wave of vibration, and we are not the energy that we are experiencing ourselves to be. The physical body being one of those energies. We're actually consciousness, which exists independently of the energy and exists in a platform of empty space. So the actual sum size of the universe is contained within the electromagnetic field of the heart. The whole idea of a vast universe comes from our ability to dial in our focus and to narrow it to these specific points within the universal vibrational range. But we're all right on top of each other. It's our brain that receives input of vibration, decoding slight variances in vibration that paints the picture of space and time to our minds. So a very slight variance in vibration tells Lisa that she's in Australia, sitting there on that couch, and a different small variance in vibration says I'm here in Florida in my office chair in the bedroom. But the pure metaphysical truth is that we're right on top of each other. My body is inside of Lisa's body, her body is inside of mine. It's like an overlap. So the way I do this is to expand my consciousness past the brain, past the nerve fiber system of the body, to completely encompass the electromagnetic field of the heart all around us. And then I can begin to feel the collective audience through space and time that is either listening to this in the moment or will be listening to it in the future. Because, like I said, the brain is decoding tiny variances in vibration and painting a picture of both space and time, which is one of separation. That's what the whole entire thought matrix that we're in is, that you're in your space, I'm in my space, so on and so forth, but we're actually all in overlap. So the best way to feel me is or to feel us, because the moment we begin merging, it changes from me to we. But the way to feel us is to drop your head down into your body, go beyond the place where we think and go entirely to where you feel. You can use a visualization like your head melting like butter down into your chest. Just come deep within yourself and shut out the thoughts like there's nothing to think about. Feel, just feel for the period of time that we do this, and you'll feel me coming from the inside. You'll feel the group soul. You'll feel each one of us as we tap in and connect to each other. And it's like we all have sparks of fire. And the more sparks that join, the bigger the flame gets until we're all holding this singular presence. So your own ability to let go and to allow a greater energy to come in and radiate through you determines how far you're going to go with this. When I do it myself, I solidify. So I'm not using light energy. I'm not using an essence that's out further from the body than the source. I go deep within to where the vibration is so fast that it's very solid like crystal. So in my perception, my soul actually becomes crystalline. So I can feel the consciousness moving around, everybody else feels like lighter because I'm holding a pattern like solidity, like crystal. So the ideal thing that you can feel if you go deep into it is like air conditioning running through your body, this cool, blissful wave. But if you do feel heat, that just means that your negativity getting burned off. You know, we all have products of our own thoughts, our own little demons that we've made, and these parts of self can't stand to crystallize, and so they heat up and literally burn off, which was, we all experienced a lot of that last time. So I'm going to just bet that a lot more people are going to feel the cooling, crystalline, feminine energies on this one. I've got two rose quartz wands that I'm going to be merging consciousness with. I do a very powerful type of energy merger with the crystals where I place my consciousness through my heart, through my hands, into the molecular structure of the crystals until they spring to life magnetically. And then once that happens, I allow the crystals into the core of myself, and I allow them to pattern the entire energies, like all around, that we're all going to be experiencing. So that's the ideal thing, and how you'll know that you've tuned in is if you feel this very solid crystalline presence within and without your body. But that being said, let's go ahead and start.
And with the sort of agreed upon intent too of whether it's we're getting past blocks or whatever's been stopping those of us who have experienced this state to get back there, and for those who've never experienced this state to experience it,
Yep.
that place of being in that state of unconditional love at all times.
Yep. Deep in the now moment, and experiencing the type of energies that we actually want to create with. So let's do it.
Okay, I'm going to try this music first because you're so low. I don't want to drown you out, so just give me a second.
You don't have to worry about drowning out my voice because I don't really need to talk anymore. Like when I did the collective imagination before, I didn't really have this ability to do group mergers on this level. So I sort of had to coach everybody through verbally with what to feel, what to experience. Whereas now it's more like, just come on, let's go.
Okay,
Drop beneath the brain, go into the feeling, and we'll all find each other.
all right, that might be enough. I will.
Okay.
Come on back, everyone. Whew, that went for a while.
Yeah. Whew.
That was nice. And now I'm all spaced out and dreaming again.
Mhm.
Oh, wow. Yeah, we still got everybody? Let's see. Very nice, said Wendy. Thank you, Wendy. How was that for everyone? Oh, man. La La Land.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, feedback is good. We really appreciate feedback. That builds the enthusiasm and gets us more motivated to go even deeper. And it's like we all bounce off of each other. So we always appreciate feedback.
Well, what we're getting is that it was very relaxing. And Jeff said, like, his heart moved outside of his chest.
hmm
I actually felt Michael, Jeff, and Linda really strongly. I know there are other people there, but they were the ones I could identify. It was almost like they just went, woof.
Yeah. Yeah, you can feel the moment that a person joins into the group soul. It's like there's just a buildup, a ramp up of presence, magnetism, density, energy, vibration, force. The whole thing just begins to compound and
Say that again. I
create.
missed that last bit. You got real soft.
Oh, I said vibration, magnetism, force. It all compounds for every individual that joins into the group. You can tell when each one actually hooks in and connects. It's very palpable.
Someone, Mike, said he went so deep I felt I was swimming in a sea of other energy sources. The cat loved it. Linda got very emotional due to the realization of a shared experience. Ah, wow. I needed that. I really did. Thank you. So once again, now that we've connected with even more people than last week, anything that you feel might be a result that you could attribute to this experience, leave us a little message on the Facebook page, the One Network's Facebook page, because they're always good to read. And it may not happen today, it may happen tomorrow or the next day, or, these things are ongoing. And yeah, like Michael said, feedback is great. And just to recap,
feed us ideas, for manifestations that you want to do. Like if there's situations in the world that you want to help fix and stuff like that,
yeah,
let us know.
yeah, put your ideas in there too. And just to recap what you talked about last week was the kinds of experiences you can have, which is tapping into everyone's gifts, dreams. Oh, it's made me go to have a nap. I just go and have a nap. What else was there that you mentioned from last week?
Well, you might spontaneously have moments where your clairvoyance opens up, where you see energy, where you feel greater amounts of presence than you used to before. You might have experiences of telekinetic ability, weather control ability. Um, you'll definitely notice a ramp up in your synchronicities of how much the exterior reality is going to reflect your being, because as we connect into a group soul, we begin creating as a group. So we begin to share energy, um, and it's compounding. So it's a multiplying factor. So the more of us that join in like this, that become aware of the unity that we share, we all share in the compounded energy equally.
Mm-hmm.
And each one of us will notice that in their immediate environment. You'll begin to have a much more profound effect on everything than you ever could have as a standalone creator.
Okay. And Mike's asking the best place to reach us with ideas and things is the One Network's Facebook page. It would be the best place. Just put a post in there for me and for Michael. And share your stories, put forward ideas for collective intent. And you don't have to wait for the next show either. I mean, if something comes up for you that you need assistance with, perhaps you put it in there in the Facebook group, and we can all tune in and help out with that.
Sure thing.
Yeah.
And we'll get our technical issues fixed. So apologies that my voice was low. Thanks for bearing with it this time, and it'll be smoothed out next time for sure.
You can't actually. You can't promise. not with my track record.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you. That was beautiful. Another great conversation. Thanks. And again, I love it that we don't know where these are going to go, and looks like it was perfect for a few of us. I can't stop yawning now. I have to go and have a nap. Okay. See you guys all next week. Michael.
Yeah.
Love you. Talk to you soon.
Love you too, Lisa. My pleasure. You guys all have a great week.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
At this pivotal time in humanity's evolution, we are beginning to remember our organic technology. A technology, when used correctly, can create an experience that the majority of the people the world over want to live. It is time to use this technology consciously for our own benefit and healing, and no longer unconsciously for our own demise. We are multi-dimensional creators, creating both our own personal experience and our collective experience moment to moment. We invite you to join us as we reawaken this technology through experiment and experience our power to create and manifest.